It would appear that CAL's software is making the ATM easier to use.
An example of that is the ability our software has to customize the ATM transaction to each individual person. This is very common in the United States, but not yet that common in Europe or Asia, but I think that's the direction in which all banks will go. Because of course you know that people do want to be treated as individuals. They don't want to be part of a mass public that is has a transaction set that works exactly the same way. So for example, if I go to an ATM, I don't particularly want that ATM to ask me which language I want every single time I do a transaction. I would like that that ATM remembers that I would like it in English. So those kinds of ideas are commonly used in the United States, is supported by our software. It allows the customer to customize and modify the transaction by themselves by making a few menu option selections about what the transaction should do each time he goes back to the ATM. So language is one example. But another example might be, do I want a receipt every single time I go to the ATM? What is the usual amount of money I might want to take each time? So in fact, not only does that make the ATM a little bit easier to use, but also makes the transaction quicker as well, because the number of questions that the ATM needs to ask for a standard transaction is less, which is of course very good for the bank as well, because it reduces the queue at the ATM. It's better for customers. It also means that each time I go to the ATM, it asks me only the absolute minimum that's needed and maybe no questions at all. I put my card in, my PIN, and I get cash out without questions asked.
So you see the ATM as a key component to a CRM system, a customer relationship management system for the bank?
Absolutely right, absolutely right. And if you think a little bit about why banks were perhaps reluctant in the past to move customers away from the branch to the ATM, was because they were a little bit concerned that the touch point became less one-to-one. In other words, that when people came to the branch, there was a relationship that the bank built with the customer. However, the branch location is the very expensive way of doing that one-to-one marketing activity. The ATM can do that too. The ATM wasn't able to do that 10, 20 years ago because the transactions weren't customized. But today, the ATM allows a way for the customer to be treated as an individual. The ATM is an outstanding one-to-one marketing device because, of course, you've got a customer in front of that ATM. You know who he or she is. You've got a few seconds of his undivided attention. It's a great opportunity to market to that person.
Tell me a little bit more about how the ATM can help bring banks closer to those important customers.
If you think a little bit about why banks didn't really want to drive customers away from branches 20 years ago, that is because the banks were concerned that they would lose the relationship with the customer, because an ATM was seen as an impersonal device where the transactions were all exactly the same, independent of the customer. But that is the history, that is the past. And today, these ATM transactions can be totally customized to the individual person. It's possible for the ATM to have a little dialogue. It's possible for the ATM to say, you've got a new mortgage authorized, do you want some more information about that? Those kinds of things. Can ask the customer to decide whether he or she is interested in some more information, all that kind of thing. And of course, the ATM is able to do that very politely. ATM is able to do that in the customer's language. So arguably, it could actually be better than the way that it might be done in a branch, much more consistent, much more manageable than it used to be in the branch. And of course, the real kicker in that is that, of course, all of those things can be done at a much lower cost than a branch transaction.